This podcast is brought to you by Legend Comics and Coffee in Omaha, Nebraska, located in scenic downtown Benson. They got a new location. It's absolutely gorgeous. Check it out. And by listeners like you. Go to Patreon.com/2headed nerd. Become a patron. Support this show.
Our story this week picks up where we left off last week.
Broadcasting from the Ziggurat in Omaha and caverns deep below the metro area. It's our pleasure to welcome you to episode 753 of the Two-Headed Nerd Comic Book Podcast. I'm your head number one, and my name is Matt Baum. We have a script in front of us, but I make sure to look at that and read it every time. And I've read it at least 753 times, but definitely more.
Oh, no, more than it's upwards of 1,000 times.
Yeah.
I, of course, am the internet's Joe Patrick. I'm your head number two for this episode. It's time for another new comic show where we'll review 8 new comics from the past 2 New Comic Wednesdays. After that, we'll set you up with our must-read new comic picks for next week.
And finally, we're going to give you just a little tasty portion of our Patreon extra where we had to bring in our resident Valiant expert. When I said bring in, I meant we brought him up from the Love Slave dungeon to talk through our advanced review copy of Resurgence of the Valiant Universe #1. Not a clunky title at all. That's just rolls off the tongue.
Are there still sex kennels down there?
Yeah,
or
yeah.
have we implemented any humanitarian
Obviously,
measures?
you're skipping the cleaning on Tuesday, Thursday, Sundays. Huh. That's great. That's why it's such a mess when I go down there every time.
I don't go down there ever.
We got a heck of a pile here with the return of Jenny Sparks reminding kids that smoking is still cool. Aliens busting out of Avengers, drag races against the devil, but it all starts with the revenge of the old knucklehead. It's review time in this damn ziggurat!
Before we put on our rain slickers and wade into the red banded gore, not red band. That's a little different.
Yeah, I guess.
Let's explain how this works. Each comic will be judged using our 3-ish point rating scale of buy it, skim it, or leave it, which makes about as much sense as the continuity in the first comic we're discussing. Macho! Get this party started, will ya?
New comics from the week of Wednesday, August 21st.
We begin with Wolverine Revenge #1 from Marvel, and warning folks, this comic book is only approved for appropriate audiences.
Explicit content.
If you bought the Red Band edition, all right? It's written by Jonathan Hickman, cover and art by Greg Capullo, colors by FCO Placentia, inks by Tim Townsend, and letters by VC's Corey Petit. That's how he says that, too. I don't know if you knew that.
That's made up.
No, he's tiny.
You made that up.
He's a little tiny guy. He's so cute. Here's your solicit. Hickman and Capullo join forces for Wolverine epic like no other. I'll agree with that. Greg Capullo makes his grand return to Marvel Comics storytelling as he and Jonathan Hickman pit Wolverine against a cadre of foes who will turn his world upside down. He's been beaten. He's been bloodied. He's smiling about it all the time. And Logan only has one thought on his mind. The smiling part isn't actually in there, but we'll get to it. Revenge! Don't miss this prestige miniseries, set to become one of the defining tales in Wolverine's storied legend. So let's just talk about that real quick. Let's get this out of the way, because nothing in that solicit mentions anything about this having nothing to do with Marvel continuity whatsoever. And it doesn't.
This comic, it became very clear very quickly that this comic is not set in continuity.
Absolutely not. The very first page says, as an opener, no one knows how it happened, and no one lived who was there. What is known is that as Asteroid M burned up upon re-entry, Magneto breathed his last breath. So this is like Asteroid M fell. That was the 90s, right?
Yeah, that was later. Yeah, later on, where after Fatal Attractions, after Maggie Needs had his brain wiped.
So back in the 90s.
Somewhere in the 20s or so.
And when he died, it released the largest EMP in the history of mankind. Then the Northern Hemisphere went dark. That was 10 days ago. So there you go, folks. Not in continuity.
Magneto is dead, and we are on the verge of an apocalyptic event, because if the heroes can't save the day, then humanity is fucked.
Right. And we begin with like 0 a.m. after Magneto and the Savage Land. You got Wolvie riding a dinosaur. Greg draws the hell out of it. It looks great.
A Triceratops.
Yeah, I love his art. I could look at him draw dinosaurs all day. Fantastic.
He's very happy to be riding the dinosaur.
Right. It's red. It's a red band book. So, of course, a bad dinosaur shows up and Wolverine ends up covered in guts. What do? Out of nowhere, old school Nick Fury's here, which...
Yeah, Nick Fury classic.
Kind of fun. I like that. He's a little smilier than I remember. And I will say Capullo is drawing several people in situations where they probably shouldn't be smiling quite a bit. And I don't quite get it.
I mean, whatever. They're all buddies. They're glad to see each other. But yeah, it's yeah. I mean, if you think too much about it, then yeah, it's weird.
There's a scene where
Cap's not smiling. Bucky's not smiling.
Cap is jumping out of a helicarrier that just exploded that had Nick Fury on board, knowing his buddy is dead, and he's definitely smiling, Joe. It's weird.
Well, Matt, that's because he can do this all day. Duh.
I guess. I don't hate this. There's nothing wrong with it, but it was just so jarring, taking it this violently out of continuity and not letting us know that's a story we're going to get. And
hold on, though. It's like you said, we knew from the second paragraph of the intro page that it wasn't in continuity. What more did they need to do?
But I showed up to this thinking it might be. They even make a Krakoa mention in this. They say all the mutants that were on Krakoa left and went to Mars. So that doesn't make any sense either. Like, what are we doing? It was weird. Not to mention the fact that, like, this just doesn't read like a Hickman book to me. It reads
that I agree with,
like a big macho fest starring Wolverine,
an action movie, a blockbuster.
Yeah, in something that really doesn't have any stakes because they instantly do some things that couldn't stick in the Marvel universe, aren't happening in the universe. It's fine is where I ultimately come down.
But that's not where that's not what the comic is about, though.
I guess
the comic is about Wolverine getting revenge.
And I agree with that statement. But at the same time, I guess I thought there would be more meat on this gory bone. So here's my review. The first issue of Wolverine Revenge has some trappings of the Krakoan age with the design and even some costume and character looks and mentions, but Hickman did not come here to finish Wolverine's previous epic X story. Instead, him and Greg seem to be running a very impressive looking and gory exercise in macho mutant storytelling that doesn't take place in any continuity I recognize and almost instantly takes all the stakes off the table with what happens. I'm not upset that this isn't more of the Krakoan age, but it's not even Hickman's style. This feels like it could have been written by anybody. I'm giving it a skim it.
I agree with you and I don't agree with you. I agree that the fact that it was out of continuity was definitely weird to me. I wasn't expecting it. And honestly, I think that maybe it's for the best because now Hickman can do whatever he wants.
I guess.
And Hickman, like with this Avengers comic, this Avengers versus Aliens comic that we're going to talk about here in a couple minutes. Hickman off the chain without needing to, I mean, he's sort of smiling.
He's smiling.
Without needing to pay attention to the Krakoa saga or editor's mandates to keep certain ideas going because the other writers are having too much fun playing with it. For him to be able to just come in and do what he wants, that's kind of appealing.
I don't disagree with that. And like you said, we're going to talk about Avengers Aliens, and I have completely different thoughts on that one. But like, did this live up to what you thought it was going to be as far as a guy like Jonathan Hickman writing a Wolverine story?
I think it doesn't read like a typical Jonathan Hickman book. Yeah. It does read like an action blockbuster, but action blockbusters are fun.
I suppose. I didn't think this was even that interesting.
And so I think judging it by the weight of our expectations is unfair because our expectations, we were not born from anything. Like we didn't know anything.
Sure. What about the paint by numbers aspect of it though? Like the bad guys that show up? Some of which are just completely out of character for the story only. Nothing shocking here. Just here's your Wolverine formula. He's bad. These are his bad guys.
I think it's also worth maybe noting that the main villain of the piece is Mastermind, and Mastermind's whole deal is illusions.
I suppose.
So we don't really know what.
Okay,
well, you know,
that's fair, and maybe none of this is happening the way we think it is.
I'm not
true.
I'm not trying to like predict anything that ultimately won't come true, and then we'll be mad about it.
But
I'm
you're
just
not
saying,
wrong.
hey,
I didn't even think about that. You're not wrong at all.
We don't know what we know, and our expectations were maybe unfair. I think it was a fun comic. It did strike me as weird that it was out of continuity. Yes, I thought the art was great. I'm giving this a buy it because I still think it's a very fun Wolverine comic.
I think if it turns into what you mentioned, that could be interesting. But if it's just going to be this, I just don't care that much.
I mean, the need for it to quote unquote matter. None of it matters, man.
I don't care if
it's all comic books.
I don't care if it matters or not. I want it to be better. Yeah, that's
just it, though. I didn't think it was bad.
I didn't think it was very good. I thought it was fine.
Matt, I think we've done it again. We've picked a theme unintentionally, and that is books for mature readers that are not in continuity.
I suppose. Yeah. I don't know how mature this one was, though. They cut out all the cuss words for some reason.
It's mature adjacent.
It's a Black Label book where they use Grolix instead of cuss words, and there's no nudity and no gore. What are we doing?
Yeah. All right. Save that. It's Jenny Sparks #1 from DC and their Black Label imprint. It's written by Tom King with art and colors by Jeff Spokes. Letters are by Clayton Cowles. Don't call him VC's Clayton Cowles because he is operating outside the gang.
Yeah, don't tell DC he's part of a gang either. They might fire him. So.
That's right. It's 40 pages for $4.99. Here's your solicit. The wild storm begins. What could four strangers have to do with the fate of the world? Find out as Captain Atom goes rogue, threatening to destroy the planet he once swore to protect. Can any hero stop him? Well, it may take the most unconventional of them all. Jenny Sparks, the one woman tasked with keeping all the heroes in line, no matter the cost. With a snap of her fingers, she's entered the fray and won't quit until the job is done. The spirit of the 20th century returns for the 21st in this action-packed new miniseries by Eisner Award-winning writer Tom King, who we know from books like Wonder Woman and Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, and artist Jeff Spokes, who drew this comic and apparently nothing else. Thanks, DC.
There you go.
So Tom King is back with another Black Label series focusing on a relatively minor or obscure character, which basically means he can do what he wants without regard to continuity, except cuss and show some dang butt cheeks, apparently.
I mean, like, what do you do, Black Label? What's your job?
We've talked about Black Label at length. We don't need to get into it right now,
no,
but it's weird that it's a mature reader's line that doesn't really have mature content.
Like, if you want to do Wildstorm in the DCU, fine. You could do this. There's nothing preventing this from just being a DC comic, but
well, except for the Captain Atom stuff.
I'll get to that, but yes, I agree.
Yeah. But I mean, setting it out of continuity and not having any explicit content, it's fine. It's not like that's what I was reading it for. I think it was smart to set it in this kind of continuity adjacent reality that's familiar, but it still features a living, breathing Jenny policing the superhumans of the DCU. I liked that role for her. I thought that King had her voice down pat. The dialogue took me right back to the heyday of Stormwatch and the Authority in the late 90s.
Oh, yeah.
As usual, the narrative is disjointed. King's all over the place following this group of strangers. They're all going through some manner of personal crisis, and they eventually converge on the same bar with an insane Captain Atom and Jenny. So Captain Atom in this book, his eggs are scrambled. We don't know why. But I did like this take on him. Again, it's out of continuity, so don't worry about the Captain Atom that you know.
They've got to explain what's going on with him, though, right? I mean, I need to know. Has he always been like this in this continuity, or is he just messed up because something happened? I need to know.
Well, I mean, it seemed true to the idea of a man who was strapped to a nuke by his own government, hurled forward in time and given the powers of a god. The guy's unhinged.
I mean, sure, but he hasn't been a problem until now. Batman even says
but
that.
You're thinking of it as though his adventures in the past happened in this world, and we don't know that that's true.
Batman says he has just become a problem. He has not been a problem in the past.
Okay, well, then maybe they'll explain it.
Yeah.
The art by Spokes, fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Very reminiscent of other shadow-heavy, thick-lined work by artists like Ryan Sook or Carrie Nord, especially Ryan Sook.
Yeah, definitely Ryan Sook. It looks great, though. Man.
So here's my final review. Jenny Sparks #1 is a triumphant return for one of the late 90s best new characters. There is no explanation for why or how she's back, and we might never get one, but that's not the point. If you want to know why she hasn't been around or why she's not supposed to be around, go read The Authority. It's not my job to explain it to you. It's not Tom King's job to explain it to you.
It's not DC's job either. They don't care.
Well, look, I mean, it doesn't really matter. Like all you need to know is that she's a character who polices other superheroes. She's super freaking powerful and she's British.
I suppose. Finish the review and then I'll give you my thoughts on.
All right. King's smart writing and Spokes' excellent art will definitely appeal to longtime fans and to readers unfamiliar with Jenny's previous adventures. I know that I'm on board for sure. I'm giving this a buy it. I thought it was great.
It's a buy it for me too. It's a great comic book. It's really well put together. I love the way King does his stuff. The art is outstanding, but I can't sit here and tell you that I understand this exercise. And maybe it's just because it's Black Label or whatever, but like we're showing things that happened in old Wildstorm continuity. She's talking to Batman.
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. And like she's talking to Batman and like, what's Superman doing and stuff, like referencing, the regular DCU. And it just doesn't have to be a mess like this, DC. It doesn't, and I don't want to have those thoughts, but I'm giving it a buy it. It's great. And I'll take more Jenny Sparks if this is the only way I can get it.
Can I make a counterpoint here real quick?
I just don't get it.
I think that you're putting too much weight on that sort of stuff. It doesn't matter.
I can't help it. You can't help it either.
You know that she knows Batman and that she's intimately familiar with the Trinity of the Justice League because they use their first names.
Oh, no, I know that, but we haven't.
Batman refers to Clark and Diana and she knows who that, she's in the inner circle.
But somehow Batman can come and go.
That's really all you need to know.
Batman comes and goes with Black Label to regular DCU, no problem. Jenny Sparks does not. But here's some Wildstorm stuff that happened.
But this is its own thing.
I get it.
Stop worrying about everything else that happened. This is its own thing.
Maybe I need a little more world building then, instead of Black Label just doing whatever the shit it wants to and whenever it wants to. I don't know. Fine. Whatever.
I don't know.
I still gave it a buy it.
I know. I think that we focus too much on how things fit, how they matter, when sometimes all you need is a passing familiarity to enjoy the ride. Like that Strange Adventures book. It didn't matter about Adam Strange's history with the Justice League.
Yeah. You got to admit, though, it's a weird exercise.
I don't have to admit. I didn't feel weird about it at all.
You did last night. You absolutely did. I rolled over and I was like, Joe, wake up. And you were like, what do you want? And I was like, I'm just so confused.
Don't put that into the universe.
And you were like, Black Label.
Don't put that hex on me.
I don't know what to tell you. Okay, go back to sleep. Book number 3 from last week is a wild one. It is Patra, #1 from Dark Horse. This is written by Ziggurat favorite James Robinson. We haven't seen him for a while.
Sure.
Nice to have him back. Cover and art by Scott Collins. Letters by Jim Campbell. 32 pages, $3.99. James Robinson's like your boyfriend. He wrote your Starman book, buddy.
James Robinson wrote my favorite comic book run of all time. That's true.
Yes.
And I can count. Yes, that's true.
And you want to kiss him on the lips.
End of thought.
Yes. It's 32 pages for $3.99. Here's your solicit.
I'm just saying he's written a lot of other things.
He's written a lot of other things. From the celebrated creators behind Starman and The Flash, things Joe Patrick loves, comes this new supernatural series about slasher, monsters, mad scientists, and cult movie-inspired horror. Young girl named Patra wakes up with no memory of her past. All she knows is that a big knife and a horrific mask appear whenever she's in danger. Oh, that and a deranged killer in the tradition of 1980s slasher films who is slaughtering families in a small Midwestern town and wants to make Patra his victim too.
Who also has a magic knife, I guess?
Maybe, yeah, and maybe it's his mask as well, I think. I don't know. Because it's like,
I don't know.
It's on his face at one point. Join us.
That was the theme of this entire comic. Yeah. I don't know.
Join us for a new series as one brave little girl faces both monstrous dangers and mysterious secrets in this homage to classic horror movies of yore. Just looking at the cover, you'll instantly know that Scott Collins is going to go completely friggin' insane in this comic book.
I will say this. I think that cover is very effective.
It's great.
All of the hand-drawn lettering. Like, I really love it.
It's kick-ass. And like, I'll tell you what, nothing on the stands this week looks like this.
The only thing on this cover placed by a computer is the Dark Horse logo and the issue number.
Yeah, probably. It's a fantastic cover. And I really like the design of the little girl too, and the skull face and the hair.
Yeah, she looks cool.
And the bad guy looks super scary. I mean, there is a definite like Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street vibe here. This is straight 80s slasher, complete with like the old guy that shows up like, I worked at the mental hospital where the guy with the alliterative name who's not Michael Myers, but in this he's Jeremy Jones, who's actually a guy I work with, which is kind of weird. Every time I read it, I chuckled. But he's pure evil and he kills families and there's no stopping him, you know, whatever. Like, it's all here.
You weren't here in the summer of 06.
Yeah. Collins is just, I can't say enough about like his art here. I've never seen the guy do horror. He's so damn good at it. This looks fantastic. It's even more scribbly and detailed than I normally see from him. And
the inking's a little loosey-goosey. Normally he has an inker like Doug Hazelwood who does like very clean line.
Yeah, I almost
and he's inking himself here, and it's very like the shading is just like,
I think it works.
Cross hatching and like,
yeah, I think it works.
Layers and layers of lines and stuff.
And he wanted that.
It's an observation.
Yeah. I think it adds to it and makes like some of these panels look even creepier and scarier. I love these designs. The story, there's a mystery. They're going to explain it. James Robinson is good at this. He knows what he's doing. Okay. So here's my review. Robinson and Collins are both stepping out of their usual work and creating a slasher horror story with a supernatural bent and a creepy hero bound to the killer who murdered her own family. Collins' art is even more chunky and scribbled than ever, giving the book a terrifying and surreal look. This seems like a real departure for them both, but the story they've set up is so familiar. And you could tell they're nerds. They're 80s and 90s horror nerds just like I am. They left me wanting more. I got to see what the hell is going on with this character. I'm giving it a buy it.
I mean, yeah, no notes. I don't really have anything to add to your review other than I haven't ever seen anything like this from either one of them.
Yeah.
There are some James Robinson isms that creep through, like the little girl keeps exclaiming "Jeepers!"
Yeah.
You know,
that's her tagline. Yeah.
But I mean, the art is gorgeous. The story is bizarre. Like, don't ask me to explain it. I don't really understand what's happening, but it was a fun ride. It's a fun thrill ride. And yeah, like you said, clearly these guys are fans of this genre and that era of horror, and it shows on every page. This is a buy it for me. It's weird and gory and fun and silly.
I would argue the story is very straightforward. The mystery is bizarre. Like what's happening within it.
Parts of the story are straightforward.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. For a nice change of pace, let's move on to a completely straightforward detective story starring a giant.
Well, starring many giants.
Starring many giants. Sorry. It's Huge Detective #1. It's such a great title.
I love it.
This is from Titan Comics. It's written by Adam Rose with art by Magenta King. Great name.
Oh, yeah.
Colors are by King and Minnie Monet, or Minnie Moan. Letters are by DC Hopkins. Cover by Paul Pope. What the hell?
Yeah. Miss you, Paul Pope. Come back to us, please.
Yeah. I mean, Paul Pope, draw a comic, will you? Here's your solicit. And there's a lot of caps in here, and I'm not screaming them because I live in an apartment and my internet connection makes it all weird. But just trust me, the first half of this is all in caps.
Don't forget the coward part.
An all-new detective noir of gigantic proportions. Chinatown meets the BFG in an original series. Something huge is coming. When a string of murders and disappearances sweep the United States, a human and a giant with sizable detective skills are on the case.
Did anyone see BFG? I mean, they could have said like Attack on Titan or something.
I didn't see BFG.
Nobody saw that friggin' movie.
Also, this giant is not especially friendly.
No. Well, friendly enough. Friendly.
I mean, I guess he's not like eating humans. Sure. After a race of giants emerged from deep sleep beneath the earth, a bloody conflict ensued in what became known as the Omega Event. Eventually, a treaty is resolved and state of Brobdingnag is created, allowing humans and giants to coexist harmoniously. Yet tragedy threatens to shatter the peace, and an unlikely partnership is formed between detectives Tamaki and Giant with a Y.
I know.
Or Gigant. We'll get into it.
I think it's Giant.
I don't know, man. That seems kind of on the nose. As the pair attempt to stop the criminal at large, they find themselves involved in a mystery bigger than either could imagine. There are so many giant puns in that solicit, and you can tell when you've hit them because they're all the puns are in caps.
Yeah, we get it.
Yeah, we get it. So these they call these giants the Huge, hence the title Huge Detective. So after the war with the Huge, peace is maintained by giving them regular infusions of tanker ships full of booze and the entire continent of Australia. No problem.
No one was using it anyway, right? Get out of there, Australia. You're all a bunch of criminals anyway. Get out of there.
I loved the black and white recap pages at the beginning. Yeah, loved.
Very cool.
We get a lot of great touches that kind of color in this world, like the Huge that makes a living carrying a traveling hotel on his back. And the human-sized serial killer that thinks he's a giant. Oh, there's also a theme park for the Huge where like humans are hired to live there, and it's like a living doll park. Ugh. Which is creepy and weird.
So creepy.
I really loved all of those little details. The titular Huge detective is named Giant. It's Gyant. It's probably supposed to be pronounced Giant. I, in my head, kept calling him Gigant.
It's definitely Giant. There's no question. There's too many puns for it not to be Giant.
I mean, I get it. Despite the weird trappings of the premise, Adam Rose gives us a legit mystery and a really interesting, like, off-kilter detective partnership. I love that stuff. I really enjoyed Magenta King's art. It's definitely got a nice old school kind of manga vibe. Her shading and her use of color are really interesting as well. They add some cool texture to the backgrounds. So I thought this was a really interesting looking book. Here's my final review. There's a lot of moving parts in Huge Detective number 1. The human detective has some sort of horrible disease. There are missing huges. Something weird's going on the moon. And then there's the actual A-plot about a murdered girl. But all of these subplots, King's art, and the premise in general are compelling enough to keep me invested. Given this one, buy it.
I like this.
It was an odd surprise.
It was odd. I'll say that. And some of it was a little so odd. Maybe it was just me, but I had to like really look and get across the serial killer thing. I didn't quite get what was going on. Like, is he small? Is he kind of big? Or does he just
No, he's small.
Huge?
He's normal size.
I didn't get it at first. And then later on in the comic, I kind of settled into the idea like, okay, he's just a weirdo. And she needs help from this other giant. I'm not really clear on why, but has his own mystery. I like this. I'm going to give it a strong skim it, but I think there's some storytelling elements that could have been a little tighter, maybe. And I don't think it's an art issue. I think the art is very cool. I very much like the art. I think it was just the story did a lot, maybe. I liked it. Okay, strong skim it from me. And I do want to see where this goes because it's weird as hell. And I like the premise. It is very reminiscent of things like Attack on Titan, where giants showed up out of nowhere and started eating people and stuff like that. I can't say it's not, right? It's a different way to do it.
But that's not what the giants are doing.
Some of them are. But this one is not. So I'm going to give it a strong skim. I got to see where it goes.
New comics for the week of Wednesday, August 28th.
Thank you, Macho. And our first book of this week is Aliens vs. Avengers, #1 from Marvel. It's written by Jonathan Hickman, making his second appearance this week. Cover and art by Assad Ribic, colors by Yves Forcina, letters by VC's Corey Petit. It is 44 pages. It is $7.99, which seems kind
Seriously,
of
did you make that thing up about Corey Pettit's name?
Yes, I made this up. Of course his name is Corey
Okay,
Petit.
thank you.
It's just fun to say it. And picture him as a little tiny cute guy.
Sure.
Here's your solicit. Aliens and Avengers face off! It's all led to this. Xenomorphs reach Earth. The perfect organism meets a planet of superhumans. Who will be the first to fall? Legendary collaborators Jonathan Hickman and Assad Ribic cut loose in this 4-part epic, unmissable for Marvel and Alien fans alike. I do not have the words to talk about how gorgeous the art in this comic book is. It's like Assad Ribic is just taking Mobius notes and getting better and better at what he does. And it's not just the fact that, like, look, I'm a sucker for the Xenomorph. Love that monster. And he draws the hell out of it. But I'm like, his Shi'ar are gorgeous. Every character in this, his Iron Man looks kick-ass. The ships in this are absolutely amazing. And the scope of the comic is so huge. I love that the Space Wakandans make an appearance here, and they're total badasses. The ones from the Ta-Nehisi Coates run, great to see them. Hickman is very clever with the way that he's pulling this off too, because in a lot of these Aliens versus or Predator versus, you got to wonder, like, what are the stakes here at all? The hero should be able to handle this, right? But the brilliance here is, one, we're set in the future, right? Two, the problem is already here. It's already happened. Earth has been full on invaded. And three, the way that this happened was intentional, and they used the most effective parts of the alien, which is drop it in a heavily populated place. You got aliens everywhere, baby. Like, nothing you can do.
I liked that description of, like, and then in 6 weeks you have this much infiltration.
Yeah.
And in 6 months it's total contamination.
Yeah,
like,
they laid it out.
I liked that kind of like extrapolation of, like, what happens, that theoretical exercise of, like, what happens when you introduce the Xenomorphs to a population.
And it's the scientists that were studying them that are like, here's exactly how it worked. That's all you need to know. Go. This is how you do an effective aliens versus whatever story. Just play on what they do best, and that is make a lot of baby aliens that kill shit.
I also liked that it wasn't so far in the future that we didn't have familiar characters, because the Aliens franchise is at least 100 years in the future, right? 150 years, 200 years in the future. This is old. This is in the future far enough that T'Challa is old.
Well, Joe, Aliens franchise actually starts 5 billion years ago when life was starting.
Shut up.
I know.
But yeah, like, Professor X is still alive, you know, that kind of stuff.
Right.
They're just old now.
And there's even some faces that you'll recognize from Aliens movies that you may have enjoyed and I did not, but they're here. So whatever. Here's my review. Sometimes pairing movie properties up with superheroes just doesn't work. See the recent Justice League Godzilla if you need more proof of that. But when you have a writer like Hickman, who fundamentally understands what makes a xenomorph so scary, paired with an absolutely incredible artist like Ribic, the results can be better than the last several entries in the film franchises. The creators use a very simple trick to give the book the high stakes it needs. The heroes have already lost. Earth is screwed. And like the stars of every Alien film, all they can do now is run. Aliens vs. Avengers is bleak, beautiful, and terrifying fun that doesn't need red band gore to be scary. I'm giving this a buy it. Well done, gentlemen.
I agree completely. I'm going over it now, and it does that thing that some horror movies do, especially Alien movies do really well, where it's like super competent character X is in the lab solving everyone's problem, and now it's just a waiting game, waiting for them to introduce the cure or what have you. And then character Y comes to the lab, knocks on the door, and shit is fucked.
Yeah.
Don't open the door to the lab.
Right.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
I love that trope, and it's used very, very well here. You are right about the art. Assad Ribic is at the absolute peak of his game here.
Yeah.
He draws a scary as hell xenomorph. His Hulk is scary.
His Hulk is fantastic. God,
it's so good. It's so good. This is a huge buy it. Like, I don't want to talk about it anymore because I don't want to spoil anything. I will say, though, that as Matt pointed out rightfully to me, a novice, that if you are deep in on your alien lore, you'll probably get a little bit more out of it. But if you are a casual like myself, you're not punished either.
I do think there's plenty of Marvel moments here, specifically some of the characters that stuck around and decided, fuck that, I'm going to fight. You know, like,
yeah, I mean, like, I'm capable of watching an alien movie or reading an alien comic and enjoying it, even though I don't know the entire history of the alien franchise. But if you do, like, I seriously thought that one character was another, and Matt was like, no, that's this guy from Aliens. So I was like, oh, okay. Man, when we pick a theme, we stick to it because we are still in space. Oh, I guess the last book was technically on Earth, but there was some space stuff.
We're back in adult territory, though. I'll say that.
We are back in adultish territory.
Yeah.
This book is called Life. Life #1 from DSTLRY. It's written by Brian Azzarello and Stephanie Phillips. The art is by Daniel Zezelj, which is definitely how you say it because I looked it up on Google.
And we have not seen this dude in a while.
In a minute, yeah. Colors are by Lee Loffridge. Letters and design are by Jared K. Fletcher. It is a good looking book. It's 56 pages for $8.99. Your typical oversized, beefy DSTLRY boy. Here's your solicit. New 56-page series debut. Brian Azzarello from The Blood Brothers Mother and 100 Bullets. And Stephanie Phillips writing together for the first time. You know Stephanie from Grimm and Harley Quinn and other things. Team up with artist Daniel Zezelj from Nostalgia and colorist Lee Loffridge from Deadly Class. Nice that they give the colorist his credits.
Yeah.
To create a masterfully crafted flip book housing two enthralling narratives that collide in unexpected ways. In the future, a death penalty will be considered an act of kindness, as covert experiments have forced criminals with multiple life sentences to live all their time to full term. For the quote-unquote Casanova killer, that means living out the nearly 2,400 years of his 32 life sentences. Yowza. Mining on a distant prison planet alongside some of humanity's most heinous offenders. Years pass, decades turn to centuries. Abandoned, the prisoners are shocked to see a ship approaching, filled with thieves, hoping that their next big score is on the planet's long-dead mine. They have no idea that the prisoners are still alive. While the prisoners scheme to find a way off planet, the thieves plan the biggest score of their careers. Each issue of Life is a flip book, housing one story from two different perspectives. A prison break and a heist. Both offer interlocking narratives, creating an immersive experience that will challenge your perceptions of justice while begging the immortal question, who really wants to live forever? Wow. For fans of Aliens, Ocean's 11, and Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I mean, the first two, sure. I don't know about the third one.
Yeah, I might throw Outland with Sean Connery, where he's the sheriff of the mining colony in space.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen it, but sure, why not? That is a very lengthy, very detailed solicit that explains the entire plot. So I'm not really going to spend any time at all recapping much of the plot.
Don't need to. We know what happened. Thank you, solicit.
I love a flip book comic, and Life #1 is done really well.
Yeah.
You can read either side first, and the two come together nicely at the end, or in the middle, as it were. Prose is one side. It features a group of expert thieves. As the solicit said, traveling out to deep space for one last score. Cons is the other half, featuring a group of terrorists, serial killers, and rapists. Seriously, like bad dudes.
Well, yeah. I mean,
being forced to live out sentences far beyond their normal lifespan as part of an inhumane experiment. I read Prose first, which just seemed to make sense, like pros and cons.
That's what I did too.
There's a weird Knob Creek product placement for some reason.
I mean, I guess it's good bourbon. I guess they love it. I don't know.
I mean, I wonder if did they pay for that? They must have paid for that.
No way. And I'm not knocking distillery, but like, what is the product placement for Knob Creek worth in a distillery comic?
It's like they photoshopped a picture of the label off of a Knob Creek bottle onto a drawing of a bottle.
There's more to the label of Knob Creek. Like, I drink Knob Creek. It's good. But
well, I mean, I'm sure, but it's like it was recognizable. Like, I recognize the logo.
I don't get it, but you know.
Azzarello's stilted tough guy dialogue is tempered by Phillips's strong character work. They work together really well.
Definitely.
The entire tone of the comic is as described in the solicit. It's got very strong Alien and Ocean's 11 vibes, which isn't a bad thing at all. I remember hating Croatian sensation Daniel Zedgel's work when I saw it for the first time.
Not me, man.
In a Captain America comic in the early 2000s.
I have always loved this
Bill Jemas Anything Goes era, and shit was being thrown to the wall left and right. I was a damn fool. Zazelja's expert use of multimedia art techniques creates this deeply moody and atmospheric tone for the book. It's at different times beautiful, and it's also desperately bleak. This book is gorgeous. Here's my review. Distillery hits again with Life #1, a fantastic first issue with familiar themes, but two compelling interlocking stories deftly told by a great group of creators. Sign me up for more of this. Huge buy it. I loved it.
I've always loved Zazelj, and before it was cool. Now, I agree. Weird flex. Weird flex for a Captain America book. Yes, I totally agree. But
I mean, like, it was a weird mini, so it's not like it was the main Captain America book, but still.
Here, his art is so perfect for sci-fi, and quite honestly, I don't think I would have pictured it being this good for sci-fi. I don't think I've ever seen him do sci-fi before. But they're nailing it. It's got that alien aesthetic. It's barren. It's cold. It's bleak and dark, but really well lit by computer screens and shit like that glow.
I loved the lighting effects. Yes.
Yeah. The ships are great. The story itself, I mean, this just looks like a storyboard for a really, really good sci-fi show, right? Where we get one episode of the Pro, one episode of the Con, one episode of the Pro, one episode of the Con, and they come closer and closer together until we're watching the same show and they're both doing the thing, you know? This is really well thought out. Of course, it's brilliantly written because look at the writing talent on it. I love this. Massive buy it.
Yeah, it was truly a wonderful surprise. Zazelj is, when I was doing my research, Zazelj is a very famous illustrator in Europe, and he doesn't do a ton of comic work. And so for us, it's like, where's that guy been? Well, I'll tell you where he's been.
Making money,
making a huge name for himself, making bank in Europe.
I guess he got tired of dummies like Joe Patrick talking shit about it.
Yeah, but the dude is so good.
I love it. Love it. This week's most unlikely comeback goes to I Lie Popeye #1 from Massive. I do not like that title. It's just dumb. It's written and drawn by Marcus Williams, colors by Rodney Velchez. It is 40 pages for $4.99. Here is your solicit. Popeye, arguably one of the most iconic characters in comic book history, makes his return to comic shops this May. The century-old comic strip and legendary cartoon character is reimagined for the modern age in this brand new series that did not come out in May, but did come out in late August by Marcus Williams, who also
there's something about that, and I'll look it up while you talk.
Okay. Who also worked on Marvel's Captain America. They're probably talking about the Free Comic Book Day thing that came out. Popeye, I Lie Popeye, what are you doing, solicit? Reimagines the pop culture staple in a high-energy, manga-inspired monthly comic series that explores Popeye's past and finally reveals the century-long mystery of how he lost his eye. It's not a mystery. We know how. It was a can of spinach that did it. What was it? Was it an epic battle or some nautical accident? The truth finally comes out as an old enemy from the sea returns to face off against the legendary Sailor Man. With the rich history of the character and this action-packed new take lifted from the pages of top-selling manga like One Piece and Dragon Ball. I see what you're doing there, guys. I Lie Popeye will appeal to both traditional comic fans and younger manga readers alike. Please, please, please buy this manga, kids. Williams' art definitely walks that line between cartoon and anime, but he is so good at it because if you look at this, he's not going straight manga Popeye. Not at all. There's a very classic looking version of Popeye, but other characters in the book, monsters, things like that, definitely look manga inspired. Now,
I mean, it's definitely got a manga flavor to it.
Sure, but I mean, like, look, this is Popeye. It's not like he's all angular, cool, or wearing armor or something. It's Popeye the Sailor Man and
Not every
Bluto
manga story is
and
like that
Wimpy
either, yes.
and like the Jeep. You know, like the only one that I think kind of got full on manga treatment is Olive Oil because she's cute as hell and she has gigantic eyes.
Big old eyes.
Let me tell you, I have never been sexually attracted to Olive Oil in the past for a reason. She's a weird looking broad. You know? But this was fun, and he walks the line so well, even with the dialogue. It's very classic. You can hear everybody's voices from the cartoons, no question. The newer characters definitely speak a little more modernized and a little scarier to like raise the stakes of the game. You know, like video game final boss type shit, Dragon Ball Z type stuff. And we see the powers like in the fight scenes, very Dragon Ball. And like, I didn't even mind what they did to Popeye when he does power up and go all spinach, you know, full on Popeye. He's doing stuff that's like right out of a Marvel versus Capcom like combo or something.
It's like it is like a Capcom fighting game.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in his final form. He'd look perfect fighting Vegeta. It looks outstanding though. I see them working here, trying to grab older guys like me that love the cartoon and kids and introduce Popeye to kids and doing so in a way that he's fighting these big boss looking characters. So it almost gives it like this reverence. Like, hey, Popeye still can do this stuff. He can still pull it off. Sort of like a Superman, right? Superman is timeless because Superman still works today. We can make Popeye work the same way. So here's my review. The return of Popeye with a manga angle turned out to be way more fun than I expected. Marcus Williams is a new creator to me, but he's immensely talented and he studied these characters and the storytelling to make sure he was modernizing the monsters and combat a bit, but not losing any of the Popeye magic. I Lie Popeye #1 is an excellent read for all ages, a great way for parents that really love this character, like me, I'm not a parent, I love the character though, to introduce the superhuman Sailor Man to a new generation. I'm giving this a buy it. I went into this in the worst mood going like, oh boy, here we go. And it came out like, that was great. That was fun.
The thing about May in the solicit does refer to the Free Comic Book Day preview. You were right about that.
Yeah.
When all is said and done, Massive came to King Features Syndicate and Marcus, and they were like, let's get this out in print because this book is great. And it is great. I read it. Popeye is fucking weird, you guys. Everything about Popeye is weird. He has superhuman, like practically godlike level powers when he eats the spinach. And all of that is on display here. He fights gods in this comic. It's so bizarre, but it's done completely sincerely. The art is fantastic. It clearly comes from a place of love and respect for this character who has been around for 100 damn years. This is a good, fun comic. It really is a buy it.
It really was.
None of the stories in here are true. And I'm still not convinced that he lost an eye because he's just squinting the entire time.
Absolutely lost an eye, you moron.
Yeah, we'll see. This is a buy it for me.
He even admits he lost an eye in this. He's like, let me tell you the story about how I lost my eye. He didn't say, I'm just squinting. I didn't lose an eye. Joe.
I'm just look, Popeye is a dude that is invested in perpetuating his own myth.
Wrong.
So
Popeye's a sailor man. First and foremost, that's it. Bluto's a liar. Get out of here.
He's a superhero, Matt.
I will not listen to this. You know what? He doesn't consider himself that. And that's why he's a great guy, Joe. Okay?
That's just it. He's not the hero we need. He's the hero we deserve.
He's demonstrating how little you know about Popeye over and over and over.
There's nothing really to know about Popeye because it's so goddamn weird. Well, we made it. It's our final review of the episode, and I have to say, Matt, I've had a great time this week.
This is a great book to end on, too.
Yeah, and we had a great. No spoilers.
Don't spoil it. Don't spoil it.
Prairie Gods #1 is my final book and the final review of this episode. It comes from Mad Cave. Story, art, and colors are all by Shane Connery Volk, who I could barely stop myself from calling Sean Connery Volk. Letters are by Becca Carey. I thought that would be funnier. Sean Connery.
It really is.
I get it. It's 28 pages for $4.99. Here's your solicit. Created by the artist of Nottingham, Prairie Gods is the Twilight Zone meets Sin City. Each self-contained issue centers on supernatural events and characters in and around the small prairie town of Broadacres. The series will resonate with fans of Hellboy, while the shifting genres and themes will appeal to fans of westerns, crime, race car movies, lost treasure serials, and war stories with a dose of action throughout. The first exhilarating story features Freddie Davis, a champion race car driver who has returned home to Broadacres. He buys the abandoned speedway, intending to race its only undefeated driver, the devil himself.
Come on. Of course I'm in. You got me.
I want to take a moment to recognize that this is a perfect solicit.
Yes.
Absolutely perfect.
Yes.
No notes. I don't need your weird promo doublespeak. Sell me the book so I can sell it to a customer. It's enough to get me to give it a buy it already.
Yeah. My guess is Volk wrote this. I mean, it's good. He knows.
It's so well done.
Yeah.
Luckily for those of you not concerned with this kind of inside baseball, Prairie Gods #1, which is subtitled Race the Devil, pretty damn good. Like Huge Detective, Prairie Gods opens with a brief black and white flashback. It does a great job setting the mood of the book. I loved that section.
It's like one page and it's perfect. Just enough.
It's just one page in this.
To get you to go, got it. All right. I'm on board.
There are hints of the supernatural almost from the jump here. There's definitely something weird going on with that sheriff. And if you look at the next issue cover and it's like a very similar looking sheriff, I think I'm probably right.
Yeah, that's your through line, definitely.
Yeah. Freddy is a Johnny Blaze type before the whole, bonding to the spirit of vengeance thing. But instead of driving to save a life, he's doing it to prove that he's the best of the best.
Well, he's a race car driver. He wasn't a stunt man.
But you know what I mean. He's a daredevil. He's an outlaw. He's an outlaw daredevil.
Okay.
I don't know. He's not a stunt driver, but he's type
a racer.
Of dude. No spoilers, but the outcome will be obvious to fans of most underdog sports stories. But the very last page is a great little sting at the end. I loved that last page. I don't remember if we ever covered Nottingham on the show, but I did look up Shane Volk's work, and not that he was bad at all before, but he has gotten a hell of a lot better over the past few years. The art is furiously crunchy. It's full of angular lines and exaggerated features.
Yeah.
It's all screaming metal and tight canyons.
But it totally works. Because, look, you're doing a car race in a comic book.
I put a note in here about that. We've talked about it a lot of times. Things that are so hard to depict in a comic book medium. Car races near the top of the list. They do a great job depicting an exciting car race. Here is my final review. Prairie Gods sounds exactly like the kind of series that I love. Thematically linked short stories with a horror bent. Issue #1, Race the Devil, features some incredible work by Shane Connery Volk. It kicks off the series with a bang. Huge buy it from me. Again, a book that I picked just because I needed 8 books. And, we don't always want to do all Marvel. It gets boring. And I thought this was such a pleasant surprise. I loved it.
I loved it too. No, I'm right there with you. The art was perfect for what it was. Super intense, fantastic story. And just like timing and the way that he doesn't force anything. Volk didn't
The
force
pacing of the race is
anything.
brilliant.
But not just that, like the setup of the character. It's just enough. It's just enough. We barely know anything about this guy, but by the end, you're like, come on, you can do this, come on. You know, like you're rooting for him.
Yeah, right.
It's a huge buy it for me.
There are links for more details on these comics in the show notes at twoheadednerd.com. But if you read any of them and have thoughts, hit up our Discord and this weekend's Gang Hang as well. But now it's time to pick the one comic from this pile that, probably didn't feature Hickman riding dinosaur disembowelment suits. To add to the Two-Headed Nerd permanent collection, Matt, what was the best thing you read this week?
It was Aliens versus Avengers, strangely enough. And for all the reasons I didn't care so much about Wolverine Revenge. I mean, don't get me wrong, Capullo's art was good. Aliens versus Avengers did everything that I expect from Jonathan Hickman and had some of the most beautiful comic book art ever. I mean, like, Rebecca's just stupid talented.
There's a lot of strong contenders this week, but I will agree with you. Avengers versus Aliens was a crossover comic done right.
Yeah.
It's really a perfect example of a intercompany or interproperty crossover
It
comic.
just sounds so stupid and cheeseball on paper, and we made fun of this coming. We're like, oh, they're gonna do that right away, they will. And then you do it, and it's like, oh, well, shit, that was fan-friggin-tastic. That was way better
really
than
was.
the latest Alien movie. I would rather see this film, please. It's time to head up to the THN Sanctum Sanctorum and rap about our must-read comic picks for next Wednesday, September 4th. Let me tell you, Marvel has got to be thrilled to roll out their first Star Wars Alkali comics next week, huh? Joe Patrick, what's your pick? Apparently, nobody yelled down the hallway, hey guys, before you do that.
I mean, the schedules are set months in advance. It's not their fault.
I guess.
My pick for next week is Plastic Man No More, #1 from DC. It's written by Christopher Cantwell with art by Alex Linz. It's 32 pages for $4.99, and here is your solicit.
Plastic Man.
Hard-boiled Plastic Man Noir from Eisner-nominated writer Christopher Cantwell and artist Alex Linz.
About goddamn time, right?
Yeah. Eel O'Brien might be a superhero now, but before he was anything else, he was a crook. Until the accident that turned him into the pliable Plastic Man, Eel was bad to the bone. And just because he no longer has bones doesn't mean... I've never thought of it that way.
Well, I can't have bones, Joe.
I know, I mean, I get it, but dang. Just because he no longer has bones doesn't mean that's not still true. When an incident on a Justice League mission leads to catastrophic cellular damage, Plastic Man discovers he just might be out of time to make amends for the past he's tried hard to outrun, or to save the soul of his son, who, unfortunately for him, might have inherited more from dear old dad than just his superpowers.
What was his son's name? Offspring or some?
Offspring was his name, yeah.
That's right.
I don't think we'll be dealing with that version.
Probably not. Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, that was it farther in the future. That was like Kingdom Come era. The Eisner-nominated creative team of Christopher Cantwell from Briar, Doctor Doom, and the TV show *Halt and Catch Fire*, and Alex Linz from Monarch.
And artist of Briar, which they don't mention here for some reason.
Alex Linz is the artist of Briar? I thought that was...
No. He's on Briar as well.
Okay, well, there you have it.
Yeah.
Brings you the 5 words you thought you'd never read. Hard-boiled, Plastic Man, Noir. And hey, if we're crazy enough to greenlight that concept, you won't believe the things we're crazy enough to do in this book. You know what? Props to them for admitting that in the solicit.
Okay, to be fair, Linz took over after Jermaine Garcia left.
Yeah, German Garcia. That's what I thought.
But he's on issues 5, 6, 7, and 8. So,
I mean, that's fine. I only read
man.
the first arc of Briar, so I don't remember.
Briar.
I don't know anything that happened after that.
It's excellent. That book is so damn good.
I picked this because A, I love Plastic Man, I think that serious stories starring Plastic Man can be done well, but they've got to be done very carefully.
Yeah,
And I think Cantwell is a very talented writer, and I trust him to do something like that. And I also don't think it's going to be all that serious.
No, I mean, like, you can take an unserious character and do serious things with them, right? And it's time for a new take on Plastic Man. Grant Morrison used Plastic Man like that in his Justice League, and it was fantastic.
Sure, there's that issue of Joe Kelly's Justice League where Batman, the son is introduced as a young kid.
Yeah.
And you find out that he's got superpowers and he's trying to impress a gang, and Batman helps Plastic Man scare him straight, and it's great.
It's fantastic.
So yeah, I mean, you can do serious stuff with silly characters. I just like, there's a line that you have to walk. I think Cantwell can walk it. Alex Linz is a tremendous artist.
Yeah. It's time for
it's a no-brainer for me.
Time for a new take on Plastic Man too. Let's get him in here, okay? It's a great character. My pick for next week is Minor Arcana #1. It is written and drawn by Jeff Lemire. It is 48 pages for $4.99. And here's your solicit. Teresa, the daughter of a small-town psychic fraud, returns home to care for her ailing mother, however, begrudgingly. When Teresa discovers that there may be more to magic than she originally believed, she'll find herself caught up in a town that desperately needs her help. One of the most renowned creators in comics, New York Times bestselling and award-winning writer and artist Jeff Lemire, who worked on Descender and Black Hammer, arrives at Boom Studios with an extra-length opening chapter of a must-read ongoing series inspired by and intricately linked to the tarot and perfect for fans of his creator-owned work as well as Helen of Windhorn and Lock and Key. I love Jeff Lemire. I just kind of thought he had a corner of the Dark Horse universe where he could do whatever he wants.
Yeah, I'm not like, why is this at Boom? I don't know.
I don't know. He does some stuff at Image too. So like Jeff, he's
maybe Dark Horse doesn't really do ongoings.
Jeff's not picky.
You know?
I love Jeff Lemire, but and I'm not taking anything away from Jeff Lemire. I just love him even more when he's writing and drawing. I find that I enjoy his work more.
Yeah, like a Sweet Tooth situation.
Yes, when he is driving the ship. That is not to take anything away from some of the other stuff that he just writes. The Black Hammer shit is incredible. Don't get me wrong. Love it. But I'm excited for this. It looks really great. I don't know why he's at Boom. I think he's just not picky. He's not picky. He'll go wherever somebody wants to put something out. Good for him. And the guy apparently has 1 billion stories in his head. So
I really do think I think it's as simple as Boom will let him do an ongoing book, but we don't know. And it doesn't matter.
Maybe
it's the whole link to the tarot thing is interesting. Like, I don't really care or know about the tarot. So.
Oh boy. As an atheist and a skeptic, I sure love it. No,
I'm just, but I like Jeff Lemire. So
yeah.
The THN trade of the week is the complete dead D in parentheses there Saucer Country trade paperback from Image Comics. It's written by Paul Cornell with art by Ryan Kelly. It's 488 pages for $29.99. Yowza. Here's your solicit. Saucer Country is a dark thriller that blends UFO lore and alien abduction with political intrigue, all set in the hauntingly beautiful Southwest. Experience the full story of alien abductee Arcadia Alvarado's campaign to be U.S. president and her search for the truth of what happened to her. In the comic that suggested there was Russian intervention in U.S. politics way before it was cool.
It's true. Definitely did.
It did. This complete collection compiles the entire Saucer Country, Saucer State, and the all-new concluding chapter, Saucer Country: the finale.
It's the reason to buy the trade. You gotta get it if you want to know how it ends.
Hence that extra D in the title, which I think is very clever.
Right.
The completed Saucer Country. Yeah, Saucer Country is fantastic. I remember when it came out. I think we talked about it on the show a time or two. Ryan Kelly, like, damn, that dude is a great artist. So the art's gonna shine. And Paul Cornell is a writer we liked for a really long time. Like, he stopped getting a ton of work, which is a shame. I think he was
doing a lot of European stuff, like because like
maybe
he's a European guy. So I mean, let's not.
He used to be pretty big in the big two scene, big three, Image, DC, Marvel. But yeah, Saucer Country, check it out. It's awesome that they're doing this with the actual final chapter.
Before we get out of here, just want to let you patrons know the extra is up over at patreon.com/2headednerd. And if you want to become a badass nerd of the first order and support this show, we do it ad-free, so we rely on your support. Please help. You can get access to this content for as little as $1 a month. If you're on the fence, here is a bite-sized preview of our over 40-minute conversation about the resurgence of the Valiant universe with our good friend, Carl Smith, a.k.a. Camarillo Brillo. Welcome to your official THN Patreon Extra. It is a very special extra, and we have a very special guest who agreed to come on and help us make money. Carl Smith, you're not getting paid for this, but here you are. Thank you so much for joining us. How are we today?
It is the least I could do. I am doing fantastic.
It is literally the least you could do. We appreciate it, though. Carl, you're here because you pay a special amount of attention to Valiant Comics. Joe and I pay a very small amount of attention to Valiant Comics. And look, we want to love it. We're trying to love it. We're trying as hard
very
as we
small,
can.
but non-zero amount.
Not a zero amount. I agree with that statement. So today we're going to talk about the resurgence of Valiant, number one. Not Valiant Resurgence, which is what I thought it was called. There's a whole sentence there for the title. Alien Books is promptly featured on the cover. In fact, this feels maybe like Alien will be doing other things outside of the Valiant U. Do we know anything about that? Or they just put their stamp on it? They do.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes a little more sense to me. This is just
They were a publisher prior to doing Valiant. In 2023, around June, the current rights holders of Valiant decided they just don't want to publish comic books anymore. And so they licensed all the publication duties to this somewhat smaller publisher, Alien. They do sort of manga inspired stuff. They have a few of their own in-house characters. Very indie. Was kind of a shocking choice. But yeah, they've taken over all publishing.
Oh, wait, they do comics?
Valiant
I thought they did books.
No, they do comics. They do books. They do manga. A little bit of everything.
I don't think I've ever seen an Alien comic. An Alien books
you can.
comic
They
book
advertise for them in the back of these
Valiant.
comics. They look a little cheesecakey and a lot of horror, so it's typical indie.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Imprint.
It's your grim universe, grim fairy tales universe adjacent type of stuff. It sounds like.
Yeah, very, very much so.
It's just a strange decision for the Valiant people because there's so much money in comic books. I don't know why they would stop, printing them and offer to sell it like this.
And just to put a pin in it, the company that owned all the rights to Valiant prior to licensing publishing rights to Alien is not a comic book company. It's a Chinese company that manages IP for movies and product. And that's part of the problem with Valiant that goes back to 2017.
Okay.
But that's a long story. But that's sort of some background of why they would license this out to someone else. We were all hoping IDW were a boom, but we got Alien.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that suddenly the Vin Diesel movie makes a lot more sense.
Yes.
The Bloodshot movie. Yeah.
Well,
Their deal with Sony was a 5-picture deal.
There was supposed to be a whole
Shot
Valiant
being
movie
the tip of the
universe, and then the
spear.
pandemic happened.
I don't think that's all that happened. I think the movie tanked too. So,
All right. Well, we're not here to talk about Bloodshot. Let's get into it. I've got the creator's notes here. It's Resurgence of the Valiant Universe #1. That's the full title. It is from Valiant Comics / Alien Books. It's written by Becky Cloonan, Michael J. Conrad, Fred Van Lente, and AJ Ampadu, 4 credited writers. Art is by Guillermo Fiardo and Julio Azamor. Colors are by Lautaro Tulli. Flats are by Ludwig Olimba. Kudos to Valiant for crediting the flatter. You don't ever see that ever.
I didn't know there were still flatters. I thought that was all done. I thought maybe digital.
Are you kidding me? No.
Digital creators.
It's so much. It's so much work to color a comic that colorists, like well-known colorists that have people on staff that do the flat colors for them.
Fair.
and they just don't receive comic book.
Okay, I honestly didn't know that there were still flatters. I really didn't know. I just figured you were like, hey, Adobe Illustrator, flatten this for me. And it went,
no.
done.
Letters here are by Ezekiel Inverney. It's 32 pages for $4.99. Here's your solicit. Welcome to the resurgence of the Valiant universe. This is it. The series that will change our heroes forever. The event of the summer is here. Prepare to see the unexpected. The rise of Dr. Silk. Once an infamous villain, now a beacon of hope. I never got that impression once.
Yeah, no.
He brings forth radical ideas of a utopian world where death is no longer a part of the human experience. Many people will see him as a leader of peace and change, while others question his actions as everything has a cost, and Earth starts to break into different realities. With the help of Master Dark, Silk makes his silent, magical/technological attack on the faraway, which is not explained, by the way, causing many sinkholes to appear and panicking the world. Conflicts break out. War emerges. They're just giving you the plot at this point.
Pretty much.
Dr. Silk and his weavers craft webs of eternal life in a world shattered. Can our heroes navigate this new world order? The battle lines are drawn, and the only question is whose side will you be on when the dust settles? Featuring Exo Manowar, Bloodshot, Eternal Warrior, Ninjak, Ivar, aka the Time Walker, Rye, Livewire, Faith, and more.
Excelsior! Oh.
That is it for THN 753. If you dig our new comic reviews, check out our YouTube channel where you can subscribe to each show separately and just stare at Joe Patrick's really nice thumbnails that he puts up there with the covers and stuff. They're fun.
Thank you.
They're fun. We've also got a back issue show. We're going to talk about that in a second. And a gang hang. Or you can listen to these as podcasts on YouTube Music, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you find quality podcasts. Just subscribe and throw us a review. That would be swell. Next week, we're back to the aforementioned back issue show where we dig into classic comic books. More on that soon. If you need more THN before that, join us on the THN Gang Hang Saturdays at 11 o'clock Central. Check out our Discord for details. Joe Patrick, what else can children do at the Discord?
You can learn more about the late Neil Adams's crackpot expanding Earth theories.
Yeah, like nobody knows if he was serious or not.
Oh yeah, he was serious, dude. Yes, he was serious. He was a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah,
yes.
Maybe it's just the apologist fanboys. They're like, no, he was just saying that. Right?
Nope. Yeah. Late life Neil Adams was into some crazy shit. You can start stockpiling tissues for the upcoming Christopher Reeve documentary Super/Man. Let me tell you, that trailer made me weep like a baby. And you can debate the anatomical realities of Frank Miller and Mike Allred's leaping Robin poses.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Very famous pose from the cover of one of the issues of Dark Knight Returns, and we've just never talked about how devastating that would be for a human body.
That kid is going to land on his knees and break them.
Yeah, yep. Bad news for Carrie Kelly. Or maybe you just want to answer the question of the week. In honor of the Crow reboot's stupendously terrible debut at the box office. I mean
how does
bad,
shit
you
even
guys.
happen anymore? I get it in the 80s and the 90s, but shit better than this.
What obscure 80s and 90s indie comic character or indie comic do you think deserves a comeback? You know what? The more emo, the better. We like to tease.
I wanted to go
anything
straight
goes, really.
emo. I would say, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
There's a lot of great suggestions in the Discord already, like Milk and Cheese, and my perpetual answer is The Tick. So yeah, check that out. Great stuff. Please keep your question of the week suggestions coming for future installments of the question of the week. You can sign up for our Discord with the link at twoheadednerd.com/Discord. And once you're allowed in, I mean, everyone's allowed in. It's just that your permissions might be a little limited until we know you're not a jerk. You can post about any of our segments, or if you don't dig on the Discord, send an MP3 submission for the comic pushers, for Ask a Nerd, or for whatever, to twoheadednerd@gmail.com, and we'll put you on the show.
If you're new to the show and you agree with Neil Adams' expanding Earth conspiracy theories and Joe Patrick's Popeye has two eye conspiracies, Look, you're wrong, okay? I don't know what else to tell you, but I assure you, it's probably only because you just haven't heard enough of this show. The good news is you can hear the entire run of THN in our digital longbox archive at twoheadednerd.com. THN is a listener-supported podcast. It wouldn't be possible without the generosity of donors like our Patreon, Jay Albright, who has some weird ideas about hollow earths. But I'm not going to hold it against him. He's giving us money, okay? If you like what you hear every week, it's easy to support the show. You can sign up to be a patron at patreon.com/twoheadednerd.
Before we go, our weekly shout out goes to our good friend Chase Magnet and the former comics review crew at comicbook.com. Without getting into too many details, quite frankly, I don't have all of them, and I'm sure we'll read them online later. Comic Book's new parent company, Savage Ventures, let the talented group of freelancers go this week.
Come on, you couldn't say they savaged the group of freelancers. Come on.
Well, I'm not making jokes here. We're talking about people's jobs.
Savaged them.
Leaving most of them looking for their next gig. On a personal note, Chase has been a close friend and a huge supporter of THN for longer than I can remember, and in ways that nobody that listens to the show has ever actually seen. We couldn't have done it without him. At Comic Book, he cultivated a smart group of writers into the best comics reviewers in the business, and yes, I'm including us.
Had to nip that in the bud, though, didn't we?
They're so much better than us.
Had to nip that straight in the bud, didn't you, Savage? Way to go, guys. You know, let's get rid of the smart kids. God, this shit.
Word to you, crew. Thank you for all of the work you've done and for what you will hopefully continue to do in the future at your new online homes, wherever you land.
And go ahead, be sure to head to comicbook.com to read the gripping new AI-spawned article about Wolverine fans were shocked when his symbiote final form dropped. They're like, fuck off. God. Until next time, true believers, remember to pre-order comics. Your retailer might just replace them with a bunch of AI-written drivel. This is the Two-Headed Nerd signing off. Damn the man.
You got real angry there.
Fucking bullshit, man.